cloudy skies. Even Jeremiah, who for weeks has been wailing and mourning, is really a little more positive today, saying to the exiles, make the best of it. They should marry and get mates for their sons and daughters and multiply. And even if they're in exile, they should make the best of it. So I'm going to leave him right there on that positive note. The psalm today is even a happy one. Shout with joy to God. What an appropriate accompaniment for the gospel today. And the letter to Timothy says, even if we endure, we will also reign with him. And do your best to present yourself to God as one approved. I pick these specific lines as I think they intertwine well with the story of the 10 lepers. Now, in that story, Jesus is walking along the border between Galilee and north of that border, Samaria. Now, the Samaritan Jews practiced a different kind of Judaism. And so the Jews in Judah and Israel basically shunned them. Gosh, that doesn't happen today, does it? What is it about St. Paul who says, don't wrangle about words? Yes. Anyway, he's approaching this small town, and outside of the town are the 10 lepers who shout at him from a distance. Now, they have to shout at him from a distance because they have been deemed unclean by the priests. And so they cannot approach anyone until the priests declare that they are clean. And so these 10 shouted out to him for mercy, and he told them to go show themselves to the priests. And on their way, they were healed, except for one who came back, the Samaritan no less, to thank him. In return to that one, he says, you are saved. So not only is he healed, he's also saved. The other 9 weren't. Now, Jesus wonders where the other 9 were. You know, we might do the same. Where are they? Where did they go? But I've got something to share with you today that very few people in this state know. I was one of those 9. No, I didn't have leprosy. Thank goodness. But the Bible scholars tell us that anyone with a skin disease was called a leper. Because the priests didn't know when they would see a skin condition whether it was contagious or not. And so all people with skin conditions were deemed lepers or unclean. And only a priest could pronounce someone clean or unclean. In Leviticus, there are 78 verses that spell out in detail. Remember that second book of the Bible where all the laws are laid down? There's criteria for deeming someone clean or unclean. There's criteria for isolation. There's criteria for what the priests have to do to make this person clean. And then there's criteria for what the poor person has to do after he's deemed clean. One of those things is he has to shave, he or she, all the hair off the body. All of it. Wash his clothes, and then wash himself. And after that, there's certain times and certain animals that must be offered as burnt sacrifices to finish this whole procedure. It wasn't easy then. So according to these laws, it makes sense that Jesus told the lepers to go to the priests. That was the law of the day. And being healed on the way, they would then show themselves to the priests, be deemed clean, go through this whole rigmarole procedure, and at the end, then they could return home. They were no longer shunned as outcasts, as unclean people. They could go home, live with their friends, live with their relatives, and oh, most important, go back to work. They didn't have to beg for a living. Now, I'd like to share with you my experience of being a leper, in quotes. At age 13 months, I had just survived whooping cough and got eczema. And while that disorder normally goes away in childhood, mine didn't. Mine got worse. Parents wouldn't let their children play with me because they thought I might be contagious. And sometimes it was a little hard to get into the swimming pool. And I couldn't play around barefoot on the grass because I had sores on the bottom of my feet. It got so bad that by the time I graduated from college, it was from the top of my head to my toenails. And the only place that it wasn't was the palms of my hand. Thank God for that, because the only rash I know that hits the palm of your hand is syphilis. Okay. Now, in all that time, my mother and I had been to a variety of doctors. We had ultralight therapy, sulfa drugs, steroid ointments, injections of steroids, injections of vitamin B. That was really fun. And potassium permanganate soaks for my feet, which makes your skin purple. I felt like I could have gone and joined Sesame Street. But the doctors really weren't able to cure it. In fact, they really weren't able to do much to alleviate the itching and the cracking and the bleeding. And so, it wasn't a pretty sight. And I was pretty miserable every minute of every day. Now let's go forward to 1985. I was 44, was married, and it was 5 months before my husband would suddenly leave before Christmas, and 6 months before the month of January, which for anybody with a skin rash is a terrible month because of the dry heat in the house in winter. So what happened that summer? I was healed. Over a 2-week period, the rash disappeared. I suppose you could call that a miracle. I call it a gift. My gift. I think God knew that I couldn't handle my husband leaving and January at the same time. And so he gave me a gift. I was kind of unbelieving. Why was this happening? And most importantly, would it return? Now what about those 10 lepers? Okay, we know the one returned, praising God loudly, but where were those other 9? I'm wondering, what were they feeling? Did they go straight to the priests? Because when you go to the priest, you have to show yourself to the priest. That means showing your body. And believe me, if you have a skin condition, you do everything you can to hide. Isn't this perfect? And so I'm wondering, did they even make it to the priest? You know, did they go home to rejoice? Did they cry? Were they afraid? Did they think this was a magic trick? You know, and it would be back the next day? What were they thinking and feeling? We have no idea. The gospel just leaves us there in a mystery. Now, I'm really surprised, to tell you the truth, that Jesus expected them to come back. How many times did he heal somebody and say, go on your way? Or he would say to someone, go home because your friend, your relative, your child at home is healed. He didn't really expect them to come back. Or he would say to someone, don't tell anybody. So why did he expect these 9 really to return? So I'm wondering, is it the lepers' faith that was important? Or was it their expression of gratitude that was important? You know, our faith is almost entirely based on gratitude. We're grateful for creation, and so we praise God for that. We're grateful that Jesus came among us as a man. We praise God for that. We're not maybe so grateful for the crucifixion, except that it frees us from sin. And we're even more grateful for the resurrection. St. Paul tells us in his letter to the Philippians, in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. I have to admit, during all those rashy years, my prayers really didn't have much thanksgiving in them. They were kind of petitions and pleadings. I think I was totally unaware of something or anything that I would be thankful for. And yet, now I think I could construct quite a litany, quite a long list of things that I'm thankful for. Shoot, I have a home that keeps me warm and dry in the winter. I have a church where I can come and worship and now continually say thanks in my prayers. My finances let me pay my bills on time. I've got friends, some of whom I've adopted as family. I can come and go as I wish. I can speak what I want to say. I can create. What more can we ask for? And yet I think my list is probably very similar to yours, that we share so many things to be grateful for. And so I continually thank God in my prayers for my healing, especially when I take a shower. There's something in the gospel today that hadn't occurred to me before. And I think those 9 lepers who did not return with thanks, I think I'm definitely one of them. I think we need to say a public thank you sometimes for things that we're really grateful for, and maybe not just on Thanksgiving Day. And so with your indulgence, I'd like to rectify that situation today, right here, right now.